Hi guys, it's New Life for Jen, or Jen. Today is Tuesday, August 30th, and I'm coming on here today to make a quick video about restriction, what it is, when you know you have it, what are the signs that you do have it, and just talking a little bit from experience because I've been at restriction since May. So quick couple things. I had my surgery in Mexico. So I didn't have the dietitians and the pre-op doctors and the psychology and all that stuff. I did a lot of research online, found the doctor I wanted, contacted the group, and had my surgery in Mexico. So there wasn't a lot of, I had decided on this surgery in like February and my surgery was in March. So, there wasn't no year-long period to change my mind or to really... I researched it for months and months before I, called them in February and said, okay, I want the surgery, but that's that. So I had my surgery in Mexico. My aftercare doctor is in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was my job to find an aftercare physician. So when I refer to my doctor in this video, it's my Cincinnati doctor, not the lap band doctor in Mexico. They are there for you. They will answer your questions and, whatever, but it was our job to find an aftercare physician. First off, my band. I have an Allergan 4cc band, which people are probably thinking, what the heck? I've never even heard of a 4cc band. When Allergan first came out and they were making the bands, they had 4cc bands and 10cc bands. The way my Cincinnati doctor explained it to me, because I was really upset when I found out I only had a 4cc band. I really wanted the bigger band. But the way he explained it to me is when they went in, I had a smaller stomach, and it would have just taken me a lot longer to hit restriction if I would have stayed with the bigger band. So at first I was really upset. I was ready to go back down to Mexico and have them rip this 4cc band out and put in a 10cc or a 14cc band. But in the end, I'm very glad I didn't. Okay, so that's my background on my band. I have a 4cc band. My surgery was March 18th, 2011. My first fill was April 4th, 2011. So, within 3.5 weeks of me having the surgery in Mexico, I had my first fill in Cincinnati. He put 2 cc's in my band. He did the barium, checked my, all my incisions and scars, and put 2 cc's in. So at this point, I'm already at half capacity with the 2 cc's. My doctor in Cincinnati is very proactive about you hitting your sweet spot or your restriction level. Inside his office, there's posters and, what to look for and what are your signs and if you're there. And, they're very adamant about making this band work for you or help you. You know what I'm saying? You've heard it before, 90% you, 10% the band, maybe 1% the band and 99% you, whatever the case is, my doctor wanted me to be able to reap the benefits of the band. Like he said, what's the point of getting it if you're just going to learn to do all the work yourself? You could have done this without the band then. So he wanted me at restriction as fast as possible. So I get my first fill in April. 2 weeks later, he said if I'm not staying full between meals and I still am hungry, to come back down and get another fill. So called him, came back down, got another fill, had a half cc put in. That was like the 3rd week of April, 4th week. And he said the same thing on that appointment. If you're not at restriction, you need to come back in 2 weeks. My doctor does your liquids the first day of your fill, and then after that you move on to soft foods. And then if that morning, when you eat your soft foods, if you're good, like he says, go ahead and move right on to your normal foods. He's not making you do a 3-day liquid or any of that stuff. He said there's just really no reason for it unless you're too tight. And he does make you drink water right after your fill to make sure that you can get liquids down and so forth. So that's a little on that. My 3rd fill was on the 1st week of May. So at the point I went in to get my 3rd fill, I was at 2.5 cc's in my 4cc band. He then put another half a cc in, which put me at 3 cc's. That was the 1st week of May. And that was the point I hit restriction. And I think it was important for me to go through restriction so quickly because it didn't give me an opportunity really to really go, like, slip it all. Like, I went straight from surgery, and then, you do your 3 to 4 week after, your diet afterwards, and then I went straight to getting fills, and I went straight to getting to restriction. So I didn't have any point from my surgery where I could ever eat breads. I still have a hard time eating pastas, rice especially for some reason. So I went straight from surgery to being restricted to, so I never had that point where I could eat more than a cup, or and the big key with him was staying full for the full 4 hours. Now, Miss Fantastic just talked about how they're thinking this research is a little different, that food isn't sitting in that pouch, your new stoma, as long as they had originally thought, and I totally believe that, because I can actually feel food passing through. I can feel it, and probably 15 minutes after I eat, there's nothing left in there. So I don't know what the exact science of it is, but I know I do stay full 4 to 6 hours. There's sometimes I totally forget to eat. There's, it's something I have to force myself to do, like almost like setting an alarm clock to remind myself to eat, because I don't have hunger anymore. I don't have an appetite anymore. And that could be related to being at restriction, or that could be related to because I regulate my carb intake, so I don't have cravings really anymore. Now, if I do eat something that is, filled with sugar or carbs or processed, I do have, the cravings. So that could be, both of them. I've regulated my carbs since the beginning. So I'm not sure if it's the restriction or if it's because I've totally changed my diet. And that's what's going to bring me to the next thing. I didn't get this band so I could figure out on how to work around it, cheat it, what I can get away with. My mentality when I got it is I was ready. I was ready to make a life choice. I was ready to make a food life choice. I was ready to give up all those things. And I'm not saying you have to give them up forever, but you're going to be giving them up for a good part. If we're overweight, there's a reason for that. And there's a reason that we got to this point, and it probably was because of overeating and sugars and carbs, and so I had to mentally be ready to give those up for probably forever, and that's what I was ready for. And I was ready to make this as a life decision. So restriction means, to me, staying full for the full 4 hours, being able to get your protein in with no issues. You're not eating slider foods. That means you're too tight. Staying full, getting your water in, when to stop, if that makes any sense. When I get to the point, even sometimes up to the half a cup, 3/4 a cup mark, I'll start getting the hiccups. Some people call it a soft stop. And that's when I know I'm almost done. Sometimes I just stop. And it takes me a very long time to eat. I cannot just hurry through my food. I have to take my time. I have to chew. I think when I first got the surgery, I didn't have to chew, and I didn't have to take my time. I could just get through my cup. And then as the weeks progressed, I could tell that was something that was changing with the restriction levels. I had to take my time. I couldn't rush it. And that's, to me, another point with that whole, how much is your stoma holding for how long, because I feel you're letting that process through your band, and that's why you're supposed to eat slow. And take your time, because if not, it fills up very quickly, and that's when you'll PB. More or less, to me, restriction is staying full for the 4 hours, knowing when to stop, listening to your band, listening to your body, what it's telling you, and your appetite is going to decrease once you're at restriction, and as long as you're eating the right foods. You have to keep in mind your protein first. If you're following the Lap Band rules to a T, you are going to know when you're at restriction, because you're going to be doing the right things to know you're at restriction. So, if you're not eating your protein first and everything's sliding down, then you might already be at restriction. You're just not eating the right foods. But it's not going to stop me from eating cake, cookies, junk food. The band's not going to stop you from doing those things. Restriction is not going to stop doing those things. You're going to stop yourself from doing those things. And when your mentality gets to that point, then you'll mentally and physically be at restriction. So that's my idea on restriction. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye.